there it is. The most disappointing Ghostbusters game I ever played. But I guess since there's not that very many to begin with, a more appropriate title would just be one of the most disappointing games I ever played in general. Now, why is this? Well, I would say it's because of two reasons. The first reason is definitely completely my fault since I looked up no information about this game and just assumed that it would be a sequel to the 2009 game, which is probably one of my favorite licensed games or maybe even one of my favorite games in general. And the second reason is because, well, the game itself is just kind of underwhelming. Now, why is that? Well, let's jump right in and start with the story, which to my knowledge is nothing more than your new recruits for the Ghostbusters, and they're helping you train, and then you actually get into jobs, and then that's really it. Although I do remember there being some story cutscenes that you would get as you level up, and after skimming through them real quick, it's basically Winston gets possessed, and then you need to find something to unpossess him. So then, yeah, that leads us to the actual gameplay. And well, the game is an asymmetrical multiplayer game, in which it's a team of 3 to 4 Ghostbusters versus 1 ghost. And I should probably note before we continue that although I did say this is a multiplayer game, you can play with bots. But yeah, it's just basically up to the Ghostbuster team to bust the ghost, while it's up to the ghost to haunt the place completely. And of course, the Ghostbusters achieve this by using their proton packs and the traps, by sucking down the ghost's health and then trapping them. But of course, you're never gonna know exactly where the ghost is at all times, so you gotta pull out the PKE meter to try and find them. And another thing is that these locations will have people within them, so you gotta go over to them and if they're freaking out, calm them down. Meanwhile, the ghost's job is to basically do anything and everything in order to get the place haunted, whether that be possessing items or scaring people or just straight up sliming stuff. But with the Ghostbusters on your trail, you're gonna have to hide a few times within objects, and then it turns into like prop hunt for a minute. But yeah, that's basically the game. Fairly simple stuff. Now with that all said, I will say in theory this does sound like a fun game to play. You know, you getting your friends together or getting together with just random people trying to bust a ghost, or you playing as the ghost just trying to be as wily as possible, trying to slip under them. And that's not even getting into the unlockable stuff, like you can get a better trap or a better stream for your proton pack or even customizable stuff. One of which I really appreciated was the color scheme of your jumpsuit, some of which included the real Ghostbusters colors, so that was really cool. And I guess I should also mention the stuff you can unlock for the ghosts, which is like completely different types of ghosts with their own strengths and weaknesses, as well as the customizable stuff like being able to play as Slimer. But unfortunately, as we all know, theory and practice are two completely different things, because when you actually sit down and play the game, it's just underwhelming. And I mean, I really can't explain why, but I guess if I were to do a comparison to the 2009 game, it's just the simple fact that you're really only going after one guy. Whereas in that game, there's always like a bunch of ghosts that you have to deal with, as well as a variety of weapons that you could actually use, like the slime or the blue thing that made them freeze. Whereas in this game, all you have is the main proton stream. And another thing that helped out that game was the fact that it was in third person as opposed to this game in first person, and because of that it was much easier to see your surroundings. I mean, heck, even the ghost is played in third person. But speaking of the ghost, I actually remember him being a significant reason that I didn't like this game. That being because playing as him was just way too easy. You could just go around literally spamming attacks and then scaring people out of the building, which really increased your haunting thing. And I just remember most games winning as the ghost, especially since you have multiple tries as a ghost, 3 of them to be exact. Yeah, no, something that I neglected to mention earlier is the fact that you have multiple portals like scattered throughout the map hidden, and if the Ghostbusters find them and destroy them, you lose a life. But again, if you find out that they found one, then you could just go over and spam a bunch of attacks. And as for the Ghostbusters trying to destroy it, it really sucks because it has a whole bunch of health. But I guess in the end, I won't say that it's 100% like guaranteed that the ghost will win. There are games where if you're getting like a competent team, a very competent team, they can like suck you up and destroy you. But that was definitely much more rare. And yeah, I guess that's really all I gotta say with this game. So yeah, at the end of the day, this is just a mediocre asymmetrical multiplayer game with a Ghostbusters coat of paint over it. Nothing more, nothing less. Do you remember I collect spores, molds, and funguses?